Join me today as I am making peanut butter snack cake with fresh milled flour.
Welcome to White Shadow Fare. Make it homemade and make it with love.
In a pan placed on low heat, you're going to add 1 cup of butter and 1.5 cups of creamy peanut butter. Now, this needs to be a non-natural peanut butter. Make sure that you're not going over a medium, so you want a medium-low heat at its highest setting. And to this, you're going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar or sucanat. And so I'm using sucanat, which is just a less processed form of sugar. And so it's brown in flavor and it has that molasses flavor that brown sugar does. You are just cooking this over this low heat until everything is melted. You are not bringing it to a boil or anything. You just want everything melted and combined. So stir frequently. The great thing about this recipe is it comes together super quickly and it feeds a ton of people. It kind of reminds me of Texas sheet cake and the fact that it's rather rich, and so you need small pieces, and so it feeds more people than you would expect. So now it's very liquidy, everything is melted and combined, and I am going to turn off the heat here. After I see the last lump of butter get melted in, and I'm going to add some vanilla extract. Now always add your vanilla extract after the heat is turned off. So that's 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract that gets whisked in, and just let this sit and cool off while you get the rest of the ingredients made. In a bowl, I'm adding 1.5 cups of cane sugar. You could use white sugar. I've used white sugar in the past and it works out just fine. To this, you're going to add the salt of your choice, 1.5 teaspoons. I've been using Redmond's real salt, but any salt will work just fine, whatever you use normally for your baking. To this mixture, you are now going to add 4 eggs. You're going to add them one at a time, and you're going to mix in between. Point of doing this is getting everything well incorporated, and as you add each egg, more liquid will be there, and so the sugar will begin to dissolve. And you really want the sugar to dissolve as much as possible so that you don't get that gritty bite from the sugar after you have baked it. So as you see with each addition, it is getting more whipped up. One unique thing about this recipe is it does not have any baking powder or baking soda, which is unusual. Now, because you have so many eggs, you want to add that warm peanut butter mixture very slowly. So I'm just pouring in a little bit and mixing and pouring a little bit and mixing. I'm basically tempering it so that the eggs don't curdle or separate. Now I have a church function that I'm going to be going to. It's a potluck, and everybody is, bringing different desserts, and everybody will grab, a piece of this and a cookie here and a slice of cake. And so it's nice to have something like this where you're just getting a small taste of the peanut butter because it's rich and you don't want to overdo it. These freeze really well. That's what I ended up doing with these ones. We took half of the amount and kept that out. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe. Keep mixing until you get everything completely incorporated, and now it's time to add 2 cups of a soft wheat flour. I use soft white. I believe that spelt would work really well with this. And if you don't have wheat flour, you could also do this with just regular all-purpose flour. And when you are adding flour to a recipe, make sure that you are just mixing until the flour is incorporated. You don't want to overmix it at that point because your baked goods will become tough if you overmix once you've added the flour. You don't want any gluten development. And even though I'm using a soft white wheat and there isn't much protein in there to cause gluten, there's still some. So you don't want any of that toughness that you would get in a bread. You don't want that in your baked good. Because these are made with fresh milled flour, they are denser than many things. So just be careful when you are cooking these. When you're baking them and you test them, make sure that your toothpick goes in and comes out completely clean. If there's any sticking to it at all, keep it in the oven for another minute or two. So you need a prepared pan. I used parchment, but a lot of times I just grease and flour my pan. My oven is preheating to 350 degrees, and this is a very thick batter. So you're gonna have to kind of push it over to the sides. It's not just going to go over on its own. And that's all there is to it. It was actually very easy, very quick, and you probably have these ingredients in your home. Bake these for 30 to 40 minutes at 350 degrees, once again until the toothpick comes out clean. Let them sit in the pan for 5 to 10 minutes to start cooling, and then remove them to a cooling rack to cool completely. Once they're completely cooled, you are going to make the icing. Different than a frosting, it's not going to be thick. You need a very thin layer of this. And we're going to start with a half cup each of peanut butter and butter. And I did say I was making a recipe that was going to use up a lot of the peanut butter. So we have 2 cups total between the snack bar and the icing. And to this, we're going to add 1/3 cup of milk, but you will need a little bit more milk later on to see how much you want to thin this out. You want it to be very thin because this is a very rich icing, and we want that to cover our cake. We want it to be runny, not thick at all. So once I see that the butter has melted and mixed in, I'm going to be ready to add the powdered sugar. And you can sift the powdered sugar in if you want, but I've made this so many times. Add 1 teaspoon of vanilla once it's come off the heat. 4 cups of powdered sugar in total, and I have made this so many times that I used to sift mine in so that there weren't any lumps in the powdered sugar, but I still got lumps in there and had to work it out. I just look at this as a little arm exercise, and you have to just stir and stir until all of those lumps go away, and they go away pretty quickly. At this point, you're going to look at it and determine, do I need to add more milk? So once you get your 4th cup of powdered sugar in there, it's going to be fairly thick, and you want to add about a teaspoon to a tablespoon at a time to get it to the right thickness. This tastes so much like peanut butter fudge, in my opinion. It's a little addicting and delicious, but extremely sweet. That's why you want that thin layer. So this clearly would be too thick. Just add a little bit of milk at a time. It doesn't take much to thin it out, and you want it running off of your spoon so that when you put it on top of the cake, it runs over the top and down the sides. This really is the key to these bars, so make sure you do not skip this icing. It just won't be the same. And out of my 13x9 pan, I was able to get 30 pieces of this. So we ate 15, and I put 15 away for a later date when somebody stops by or I need to go somewhere. I can throw them on a plate, and they are wonderful. I just inverted this onto a platter that I have, and you can see how runny this is. And I just need it to run down the sides. At my house, everybody likes the outside pieces because they get a little bit more of that sugar. It's peanut buttery and absolutely delicious. Let this cool, and when this icing cools, it will form kind of a thin skin on the top of it. These bars are rich. They're best served in small pieces. Cut those bars into at least 30 pieces, I would think, for the whole 13x9. So good. Perfect for picnics this time of year, perfect at the holidays. I have made these year-round. I highly recommend them. They are yummy. I hope you'll give this one a try. Thank you for joining me at White Shadow Fair.